The night was cold, and the alien village slept under a sky full of strange glowing moons. Inside a small stone house, a young alien girl sat quietly near the fire. Her large eyes reflected fear. Her stepmother's voice echoed through the walls, sharp like a blade. "You eat too much," the woman snapped. "You are lazy and you bring shame to my house. Get out before sunrise." The girl trembled. She had no father anymore. Her mother had died years ago, leaving her in the care of this cruel woman. The stepmother's heart was filled with bitterness, and the girl was nothing more than a burden to her. The child tried to protest. "I will work harder. I will clean. I will not ask for food." But her small voice only made the woman angrier. "No more excuses," the stepmother shouted. Her hand struck the girl across the cheek. The sound echoed in the silent room. "Take your blanket and leave. I don't want to see you here when I wake up." Tears ran down the girl's face. She hugged her torn blanket to her chest. Her body shook, not only from fear, but also from hunger. For days she had been given scraps, sometimes nothing at all. Now even those scraps would be gone. The door slammed open, and the cold wind rushed inside. The stepmother pushed her out into the darkness. "Go! You are worthless. No one will take you. You will learn your place out there," the woman hissed, and the door closed with a final thud. The girl stood outside, barefoot on the cold ground. The village looked empty, but behind shuttered windows she felt eyes watching. Some neighbors whispered cruel things. "That child again," one voice muttered. "She should have been abandoned long ago," another said. Her small hands held the blanket tighter. The wind blew hard and she stumbled forward. Her stomach growled, her throat dry. She wanted to cry loudly, but no one would help her. No one had ever helped her. Step by step, she walked away from the house that never felt like home. The stones cut her feet. The night grew colder. Her eyes lifted to the strange moons, and for the first time she whispered into the silence, "Please, someone, please don't leave me alone." She walked past empty fields, past broken fences, past the forest edge where shadows moved between trees. Each sound made her heart jump, but going back was not an option. She knew if she returned, the stepmother would beat her again, maybe worse. Hours passed like this. Her small body was weak, her tears had dried, every step was heavy, but she kept moving, hoping to find at least a corner where she could rest. Then, far in the distance, she saw something strange. Through the forest trees there was a faint orange glow. It was not the cold light of the alien moons. It was warmer, softer, almost inviting. Her heart beat faster. Could it be a fire? A home? Maybe someone kind? But her mind argued with her heart. No one wants me. They will send me away like everyone else. Still, her feet carried her forward, drawn by that single light. Behind her, the stepmother lay in her warm bed, smiling in cruel satisfaction, believing the girl would not last the night. But fate had other plans. The girl did not know it yet, but her lonely path was about to cross with someone unexpected, someone who was not alien at all, and that single meeting would change everything. The alien girl walked deeper into the night. Her bare feet touched cold stones, sharp twigs, and damp soil. Each step hurt, but she did not stop. The blanket she held close to her chest was the only shield against the freezing wind. The village was now far behind her. The angry voice of her stepmother still echoed in her ears. "You are worthless. No one will take you." Those cruel words stung more than the cold. They made her heart feel heavy. Dark clouds covered one of the moons. Shadows stretched across the road, and every strange sound in the distance filled her with fear. Sometimes she thought she heard footsteps behind her, other times the cry of night creatures. She turned her head again and again, but only silence answered. Her stomach growled loudly, reminding her that she had not eaten for 2 days. She pressed her blanket tighter, as if the thin cloth could stop the hunger. "If I find food, I will save half for tomorrow," she whispered to herself, trying to stay strong. But there was no food, only darkness. The road was empty. The air smelled of wet earth and leaves. Once she thought she saw glowing eyes between the trees. She froze in place, heart pounding, but when she blinked, they were gone. Maybe it was her tired mind. Maybe it was real. She did not know. She walked for what felt like hours, until her legs shook. Her body was small and weak, and each step was slower than the last. She wanted to lie down on the ground and sleep, but a voice in her heart told her not to stop. "If I sleep here, I may never wake up." Suddenly, She tripped on a stone and fell to her knees. Her palms scraped against the dirt, and her blanket dropped into the mud. She sat there crying softly, too tired to move. Her tears fell on the cold ground. "Please," she whispered again. "I don't want to be alone. I don't want to die." It was then that she saw it. The faint orange glow she had noticed earlier. Now it seemed closer, flickering between the trees. It was not the cruel cold light of the moons. This was different, warm and alive. Her breath caught. Was it a fire? A camp? A home? Or maybe danger? She did not know, but something inside her pushed her forward. Step by shaky step, she picked up her blanket, wiped her tears, and walked toward the glow. As she moved deeper into the forest, the light grew brighter. The smell of burning wood filled the air, and she heard the faint crackle of fire. Her heart pounded faster, fear mixed with hope. Finally, through the trees, she saw it, a small wooden cabin standing alone. Smoke rose gently from a chimney, and a lantern burned outside the door. The light was soft, unlike the harsh fire of the village torches. Her eyes widened. She had never seen such a place before. It looked different, strange, and yet safe. She stepped closer, her small hands shaking. What if someone inside hated her too? What if they sent her away like the stepmother? But her heart whispered, "Try, just try. Maybe this time will be different." She stood a few feet from the door, staring at the lantern. Her voice trembled as she whispered into the night, "Please, let them be kind. Please, don't send me away." Inside, footsteps moved. The wooden door creaked. A shadow appeared in the doorway. Not alien, not like her people. It was tall, broad-shouldered, and strange. A human. The girl gasped softly, hugging her blanket tight. She had never seen a human up close before. Stories about them filled her mind. Some said they were dangerous. Others said they were strong. She didn't know what to believe. The man looked down at her, surprised. The little alien girl stood in the cold, shivering, her big eyes filled with fear and hope. Before she could stop herself, the words slipped out of her mouth, soft, desperate, and tremble. "Ling, be my dad. I won't misbehave," she begged. And with those words, her fate was sealed. The human man froze at the doorway. His rough hands still held a lantern. The warm glow spilled out onto the cold ground, revealing the trembling alien girl who stood there barefoot. Her cheeks were wet with tears, her lips blue from the night air. For a long moment, neither spoke. The forest behind her whispered with the sound of leaves and distant creatures. The girl hugged her torn blanket tightly, eyes fixed on the man as if he held the answer to her entire life. "Be my dad. I won't misbehave," she repeated, her voice small, almost breaking. The man frowned, not out of anger, but out of shock. He had expected maybe a traveler, or even a thief. But this was only a child, fragile and desperate. Her words pierced his chest deeper than any blade could. He stepped closer, his boots crunching on the dirt. The girl flinched, as if expecting a strike. He noticed how her shoulders shook, how her whole body leaned back like a cornered animal. "Easy," he said softly. His voice was deep but calm. "I'm not going to hurt you." The girl blinked, unsure if she should believe him. Her stepmother's voice still haunted her mind. "No one will take you. No one wants you." And yet, here was someone who had not turned her away, at least not yet. "What's your name?" the man asked, lowering the lantern so the light would not blind her. She hesitated, her lips parted, then closed again. It had been so long since anyone had cared enough to ask her name. She whispered it, almost too softly to hear, and the man repeated it, as if to prove he had listened. Her eyes filled again with tears, but this time they were different. They were tears of relief. The man looked around the dark forest, then back at her. "You'll freeze out here," he muttered. "Come inside. You need warmth." The girl's heart raced. Step inside? Into a human's home? She hesitated, fear battling hope, but the lantern lay right behind him looked so warm, so safe. Her feet moved forward before she could stop them. He opened the door wider. The scent of wood smoke drifted out, and the sound of fire crackling inside made her feel as if the cold claws of night were finally loosening. When she stepped in, her bare feet touched a wooden floor. It was rough but far kinder than the frozen ground outside. She looked around in wonder. The cabin was small but neat. shelves with tools, a table with a half-eaten meal, a chair near the fire. It was unlike the stone houses of her village, and yet it felt more alive. The man set the lantern on the table and threw another log into the fire. The flames brightened, painting the girl's pale skin in shades of orange and gold. She reached her small hands toward the fire, feeling its warmth seep into her fingers. Her stomach growled loudly, breaking the silence. The man raised his eyebrows, then walked to the table. He returned with a piece of bread and placed it gently in her hands. The girl stared at it as if it were treasure. Slowly, carefully, she ate, each bite filling her eyes with gratitude. No one had fed her like this in years. The man watched her, arms crossed, still unsure. "Why were you out there alone?" he finally asked. Her eyes dropped to the floor. Her lips trembled. She could not bring herself to speak about the cruel stepmother, about the endless nights of hunger and insults. She only whispered, "No one wants me. They all say I'm useless." The man's jaw tightened. He did not like those words. They reminded him of battles he had fought long ago, times when people were abandoned because they were considered weak. He crouched down so his eyes met hers. "Listen," he said firmly. "You are not useless, do you understand? Not here, not now." The girl's eyes widened, her heart beat fast. No one had ever said those words to her before. They felt strange but warm. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to believe, just a little, that maybe she had found someone who would not throw her away. And though neither of them knew it yet, this night was only the beginning of a bond that would change both their lives forever. The fire crackled gently inside the cabin, filling the room with a soft glow. The alien girl sat close to it, hugging her blanket around her shoulders. Her bare feet were stretched out toward the warmth. Her small face showed both wonder and disbelief. She had never sat by a fire like this, not without fear of being shouted at. In her stepmother's house, the fire was a place she could only look at from a distance. Now, here she was, allowed to sit close, allowed to feel its heat. The human man moved quietly around the cabin. He set down his tools, poured water into a wooden cup, and brought it to her. She hesitated before taking it. Her hand shook, but she drank. The water was plain, yet to her it tasted sweeter than anything she had ever had. "Better?" he asked, his voice calm. She nodded, not trusting her voice. The man leaned against the table, studying her carefully. Her clothes were thin, torn, and wet from the night. He frowned, then stood and opened a small chest in the corner. From it, he pulled out an old shirt, large and rough but clean. "Here," he said, offering it to her. "It will be warmer than that blanket." Her eyes widened. No one had ever given her clothing before. She touched the fabric gently, as if afraid it would vanish. Her lips trembled. "For me?" she whispered. "Yes," he replied simply. "For you." She hugged the shirt to her chest, and for a moment her tears returned. But this time they were not from pain. They were from the shock of kindness. The man looked away, giving her space. He added another log to the fire, then sat in his chair. The silence in the cabin was soft, broken only by the crackle of flames. For the girl, it felt like peace, something she had never known. After a while, her stomach growled. Again, louder this time. The man glanced at her, then stood. He cut a piece of meat from a pot hanging near the fire and placed it on a wooden plate with more bread. He handed it to her without a word. She stared at the food with wide eyes. Her hands trembled as she picked it up. Slowly, she began to eat. Every bite was a battle between hunger and disbelief. She kept glancing at him, as if expecting him to snatch it away or scold her. But he did not. He only nodded once, as if saying, "It's all right. Eat." For the first time in her life, she ate until her belly was full. She leaned back against the chair, eyes half closed, feeling something she had never dared to hope for. Comfort. The man finally spoke again. "Do you have anywhere to go?" Her small voice answered, "No." "What about family?" he asked gently. She shook her head, tears threatening again. "They don't want me," she whispered. "My stepmother said I am worthless." The man's eyes darkened, his jaw clenched. He hated those words, hated how easily they could break a child. He looked at her again, this fragile little life sitting in his cabin, and he knew he could not let her return to that place. "You'll stay here tonight," he said firmly. "Tomorrow, we'll see." The girl blinked, trying to understand. "Stay? Here?" "Yes," he replied. "Here." She hugged the blanket and the shirt tighter, her lips curved into the smallest smile, a smile that had been buried deep under years of fear. She whispered softly, "Thank you, Dad." The words slipped out without her meaning to. Her cheeks burned. She quickly lowered her eyes, afraid he would be angry. But the man did not shout. He did not laugh. He only looked at her for a long moment and then nodded slowly. His voice was low but steady. "Rest now, child." Her eyes grew heavy. The fire was warm. Her belly was full. And for the first time in her life, she felt she'd. If that night, she fell asleep in the human's cabin, not knowing that her whispered word, "Dad," had already begun to change his heart. And outside, the cold night passed silently, while a new bond was quietly being born. Morning light broke gently through the trees, casting golden beams on the wooden cabin. The alien girl woke slowly, her eyes opening to the warmth of the fire that still glowed from the night before. For a brief moment, she thought it was a dream. But when she touched the rough shirt folded beside her, she knew it was real. She sat up quietly, afraid to make noise. The man was already awake, sharpening a small knife by the window. He looked at her once, then back to his work. "You slept well?" he asked. She nodded shyly. "Yes." Her voice was soft, almost unsure. He gave a short nod, nothing more, but to her it felt like permission, like she had done something right. After breakfast, the man stepped outside to chop wood. The girl followed him to the door but stayed hidden in the frame, watching. His arms swung strong and steady, each strike sending splinters flying. She thought he looked powerful, someone who could protect her from anything. But while they lived quietly in the cabin, the world outside was not silent. Down in the village, whispers had already begun. A merchant claimed he saw a small figure in the forest near the human's home. "It looked like that girl," he muttered, "the one her stepmother threw out." "Impossible," another said. "No one would take her. She is nothing but trouble." Yet the rumor spread like fire, from the baker to the guards, from the farmers to the elders. By midday, half the village had heard it. The unwanted girl had been seen near a human's cabin. The stepmother heard it too. She sat in her stone house, lips curling into a cruel smile. "So that's where you ran, little rat," she hissed. "You dare disobey me? You think you've found safety with a human? Let's see how long that lasts." Back at the cabin, the girl sat near the fire again, trying to sew the torn edge of her blanket with clumsy hands. She glanced at the door often, afraid the man might tell her to leave, but he didn't. Instead, he placed a bowl of stew in front of her. "Eat," he said simply. She looked at him with wide eyes. "Why are you kind to me?" she asked, her voice shaking. The man paused, his hand resting on the table. He searched for words but found none simple enough. Finally, he said, "Because no one else was." Her throat tightened. She lowered her eyes, but a small warmth spread through her chest, stronger than the fire. Outside, footsteps crunched in the snow-dusted soil. A pair of villagers passed by, whispering as they peeked toward the cabin. One of them gasped softly when they spotted the small alien face in the window. "She's here," one muttered. "The human keeps her." The other shook his head. "This will not end well. Humans bring trouble. Everyone will know soon." The girl stepped back from the window, fear creeping into her bones again. "They saw me," she whispered, clutching her blanket tighter. "They'll tell her." The man's jaw hardened. He knew who her meant. He knew the stepmother would come, and yet, as he looked at the frightened child before him, he felt something rise inside him, a decision forming. "No one will hurt you here," he said firmly, placing his large hand gently on her shoulder. She stared at him, her eyes wide, searching his face. For the first time, she began to believe the words, even if her heart still trembled. But deep in the village, the stepmother was already preparing. She gathered 2 guards and whispered lies about the girl, calling her a thief, a liar, a curse. She promised them reward if they dragged the child back. By evening, the whispers had become talk, and the talk had become anger. The human's cabin was no longer just a quiet shelter in the woods. It was a target. The sun had barely set when the sound of voices broke the calm of the forest. The alien girl sat near the fire, her small hands wrapped around a wooden cup. At first, she thought it was the wind, but soon she heard footsteps, many footsteps, coming closer. Her eyes widened. "They're here," she whispered. The human man set down the axe he had been cleaning. His sharp eyes narrowed. He moved toward the door and opened it slowly. Outside, 3 figures were approaching through the trees. 2 wore the armor of village guards, and between them walked the woman he expected, her stepmother. The woman's face twisted into a cruel smile when she saw the cabin. "So it's true," she hissed. "You've taken in the worthless rat." The girl shrank back, clutching her blanket. Fear poured over her like ice water. She remembered every slap, every insult, every cruel laugh, and now it had followed her even here. The man stepped outside, blocking the doorway with his broad shoulders. His voice was calm but firm. "She's not your concern anymore." The stepmother laughed harshly. "Not my concern? She belongs to me. She is my husband's child, and by our law, I decide her fate. Step aside, human. You don't understand our ways." The man's eyes hardened. "I understand enough. You threw her out to die. She came to me for help, and here she stays." The guards shifted uncomfortably. Their orders were clear, but standing against a human always carried risk. Stories of human strength were well known even in the village. Still, they tightened their grips on their weapons, waiting. The stepmother raised her voice, filled with fake outrage. "She is a thief. She stole food. She lies. She spreads curses. If you protect her, you will share her shame." The girl's small voice came from inside the cabin. "I didn't steal. I didn't curse anyone." Her words were weak, but her eyes shone with tears of truth. The human glanced back at her, then returned his gaze to the stepmother. His voice dropped lower, dangerous now. "You call her worthless, but I see her. She is alive. She matters." The stepmother's smile faded, replaced with cold fury. "Move, or we will take her by force," she spat, signaling to the guards. The guards hesitated, glancing at each other. The human stepped fully into the clearing, his presence heavy. His hands were empty, but the strength in his stance was clear. "Try," he said simply. The tension thickened. The forest seemed to hold its breath. The guards raised their weapons, but neither wanted to strike first. The man's eyes locked on them, steady as stone. The girl clutched the doorway, her heart racing. She wanted to scream, to beg them to stop, but her voice was trapped in her throat. All she could do was watch. The stepmother's voice rose again, bitter and sharp. "You'll regret this, human. The whole village will turn against you. They will not allow you to keep her. She is filth, and she will drag you down." But the man didn't move. He stood like an unshakable wall. "Then let them come," he said. "But she stays." For a long moment, silence ruled the clearing. Only the crackle of the cabin's fire and the rustle of leaves broke it. The stepmother's eyes burned with hatred. She could not win today, not against him. She spat on the ground, her voice dripping with venom. "Enjoy your little pet while you can. She won't last, and neither will you." With that, she turned sharply, signaling the guards to leave. The guards lowered their weapons, relief on their faces, and followed her back into the trees. Their footsteps faded, but the girl still trembled, her hands white around her blanket. The man stepped back inside, closing the door firmly behind him. He looked at her, his face calmer now but still hard. "You're safe," he said. The girl. His knees gave way and she fell against him, sobbing into his shirt. The words spilled from her lips over and over. "Don't let her take me. Please don't let her take me." His strong hand rested gently on her head. "I won't," he promised, his voice steady like stone. And in that promise, the girl felt something she had never known before. A shield that no cruelty could break. The night after the confrontation was restless. The alien girl barely slept. Each time the wind shook the cabin walls, she thought it was her stepmother returning with more guards. She kept waking, clutching her blanket tighter, afraid that at any moment she would be dragged away. The human man noticed her fear. He sat by the fire long after she had closed her eyes, sharpening his knife and listening to the sounds of the forest. He knew the stepmother would not give up, and when rumors spread further, others from the village might come too. By morning, the air around the cabin felt heavier. The girl sat at the table trying to eat, but her hands shook. "She will come back," she whispered. "She will not stop until I'm gone." The man nodded slowly. His jaw was tight, his eyes steady. "You're right," he said. "That's why we can't stay here." The girl looked up in shock. "Leave? Where will we go?" He leaned forward, his voice low but certain. "Farther than she can reach. Into the woods. Through the hills. There are places where her lies have no power." The thought frightened her, but also sparked a flicker of hope. To leave this place completely, to start new, was something she had never dared to imagine. Still, doubt filled her small voice. But the village, they will chase us. The man stood and walked to the window. His broad back was lit by the morning sun. Then let them chase, he said. We'll be gone before they arrive. That day, he began preparing. He filled a pack with dried meat, bread, and water. He took rope, a blanket, and tools. His movements were careful but quick, as if he had planned escapes many times before. The girl watched him, her heart racing. She helped in small ways, tying knots, holding the lantern, folding the blanket neatly. Though her hands were clumsy, she tried hard, wanting to prove she was not the useless child her stepmother claimed. Good, he said once, giving her a small nod. The praise lit up her eyes. For the first time, she felt she could be useful to someone. As the sun lowered, the man put out the fire and lifted the pack onto his back. When it's dark, we move, Bicharisharan, he told her. She swallowed nervously. Will it be dangerous? Yes, he admitted. The forest is full of eyes, but better to face the wild than her cruelty. When night came, the girl followed him out the cabin door. Her feet were wrapped now in strips of cloth he had given her. They still hurt, but at least they were no longer bare. The forest loomed tall and endless. The trees whispered in the wind. Their branches looked like arms stretching toward the stars. The girl stayed close to him, her small hand clutching the edge of his coat. They moved quickly, avoiding the main road. Each step was careful. The man's eyes scanned the shadows, listening for danger. The girl's heart thumped in her chest, but being near him made her feel braver. Behind them, far in the distance, the stepmother had returned to the cabin with more villagers, but she found it empty. The fire dead, the bed cold, her face twisted in rage. They've run, she spat. Find them. The human won't hide her forever. Torches lit the night as villagers spread out, searching. Dogs barked, sniffing the ground. The hunt had begun. The girl glanced back once, seeing faint lights between the trees. Fear squeezed her chest. They're coming, she whispered. The man's voice was steady, calm but sharp. Then we keep moving. Step by step, they pushed deeper into the dark forest. Their breaths heavy, their bodies tense. The danger behind them grew closer. Bomb. Wood ahead. There was still a chance. The girl held on to one thought, repeating it inside her heart with every step. He said he wouldn't let her take me. He promised. And in that promise, she found the strength to keep walking into the unknown. The forest grew darker the deeper they went. The branches blocked most of the moonlight, and the ground was rough and uneven. The alien girl stumbled often, but the human always caught her before she fell. His strong hand steady on her shoulder. Behind them, the distant glow of torches moved like fiery eyes through the trees. The stepmother's voice carried faintly on the wind, sharp and angry. Find them! Don't let them escape! The girl's heart raced. Fear pushed her forward, but her small body was weak. Each breath came heavy, each step slower. She wanted to cry, but she forced herself to stay quiet. The man stopped suddenly, raising a hand. His sharp eyes scanned the shadows. He had heard something, a crack of a branch, movement nearby. Then, shapes appeared between the trees. 3 villagers, armed with spears. They had cut ahead to block the path. The girl gasped, clutching his coat. We can't. They'll take me, she whispered, her voice shaking. The man stepped in front of her, his body a shield. His voice was low and steady. Stay behind me. The villagers raised their weapons, their faces tense. They were afraid of the human, but more afraid of the stepmother's orders. Hand over the girl, one demanded. She is cursed. She doesn't belong with you. The man's eyes narrowed. She belongs with no one who would throw her away. His voice carried the weight of steel. The men hesitated, but then one lunged forward. The man swung, knocking the spear aside with his arm. A struggle broke out, loud and violent in the quiet forest. The girl froze, her heart hammering. She wanted to help, but what could she do? She was small, weak, nothing but a burden, just as her stepmother had always said. But then something strange stirred inside her chest. It was like a fire she had never felt before. Her vision blurred for a moment, her skin tingled. The world around her seemed to slow. One of the villagers broke past the human, rushing toward her with a snarl. "Come here, rat!" he shouted, his spear aimed low. The girl screamed, not in fear this time, but in something else. A wave of light burst from her hands, blinding and sharp. It struck the man's chest, throwing him backward into the dirt. His weapon clattered uselessly. Everyone froze. Even the human turned, his eyes widening. The girl stared at her hands, glowing faintly, trembling with energy she did not understand. I didn't mean," she whispered, her voice shaking. The other villagers stumbled back, fear in their eyes now. "She has power," one shouted. "It's true, she's cursed." But the man's voice cut through their fear, strong and fierce. "No, not cursed. She is more than you ever saw." The villagers hesitated, then turned and fled, their torches vanishing into the dark. The girl sank to her knees, her glowing hands fading back to normal. Tears filled her eyes. "I don't know what I did. I didn't know I could." The man knelt beside her, his hand steady on her shoulder. "It doesn't matter. You saved yourself." His eyes were serious, but there was no fear in them, only respect. "But," she whispered, "they'll say I'm a monster now." The man shook his head firmly. "You are not a monster. You are a child, and what you carry is strength. Don't let them take that from you." She looked at him, searching his face. For the first time, someone saw her not as a curse, not as worthless, but as someone with power. Behind them, the forest grew quiet again. The torches had gone, but the danger had not ended. The stepmother would not stop now, not after hearing of this. The man lifted her to her feet, his grip strong. "We keep moving, but remember this," he said. "You are not weak, not anymore." The girl clung to him, her fear mixed with something new, something she had never felt before, hope. The night stretched on, heavy with silence. The alien girl and the human moved through the forest, but both knew the chase was not over. The girl's hands still tingled from the strange light she had unleashed, and fear pressed on her heart. "They'll come back," she whispered. "She won't stop until she has me." The man walked steadily, his pack over his shoulder. "Then we'll stop her first," he said firmly. His tone carried no doubt. By dawn, the sound of pursuit returned. Torches flickered in the distance, voices shouting through the trees, and at the center of it all was the stepmother, her cruel voice cutting the morning air. "Find them! The brat is mine, and the human will regret crossing me." The girl trembled, clutching his coat. "She's close," she said. The man stopped, scanning the trees. His eyes narrowed. "No more running," he muttered. "This ends here." They found a clearing by a stream, where the ground was open and wide. The man turned to her, his voice calm. "Stay behind me, but if you feel that power again, don't be afraid of it. Use it." The girl's breath caught. Her stepmother had always told her she was weak, worthless, cursed. But this man spoke as if she was strong. His belief in her felt heavier than fear. Moments later, the hunters arrived, a dozen villagers armed with spears and sticks. The stepmother walked proudly in front, her eyes burning with hate. "There you are," she sneered. "You think you can hide her from me? She is mine by law, and you will hand her over or die with her." The man stepped forward, placing himself between them and the girl. His voice carried across the clearing, steady and sharp. "No law gives you the right to break a child. No law gives you the right to throw her away. She stays with me." The stepmother laughed, harsh and cruel. "Listen to him. A human thinks he can speak of our laws. You don't belong here." "And neither does she." She raised her hand, signaling the guards. "Take her!" The villagers surged forward, but the man was ready. He moved like stone and fire combined, knocking spears aside, shoving men back with raw strength. His fists struck hard, each movement precise. Years of survival had made him strong, and now that strength was hers too. The girl watched, heart pounding. But then she saw two guards break around his side, running straight for her. Her fear rose like a storm. Her stepmother's voice rang in her head. "Worthless. Cursed." But another voice drowned it out. His voice. "Don't be afraid of it. Use it." Her small hands lifted, trembling, and the light came again, brighter than before. It surged from her like a wave, knocking the guards off their feet. They crashed to the ground, their weapons scattering. The villagers gasped, some stumbling back. "She's dangerous," one shouted. "She's not normal." The stepmother's eyes widened, but then narrowed into fury. "Monster," she spat. "I knew it. You see? She is cursed. She must be destroyed." The girl's knees shook, her tears falling fast. "I'm not a monster," she whispered. "I'm not." The man's voice thundered, silencing the clearing. "She is not a monster. She is my daughter now." His words struck harder than any fist. The villagers froze, stunned by his defiance. The girl looked up at him, her heart swelling with something new, stronger than fear, belonging. The stepmother hissed, her face twisted with hate. "She will ruin you," she snapped. "You'll regret this." The man stepped closer, his eyes locked on hers. "No, the only regret here is yours, for never seeing her worth." Silence fell. The villagers lowered their weapons. None dared challenge him again. The stepmother, furious and defeated, spat on the ground and stormed away, her followers scattering with her. The clearing grew quiet once more. "Eat." The girl fell to her knees, shaking. The light faded from her hands. She looked up at him, her eyes wide with fear and hope. "You really mean it?" she asked softly. "Your daughter." The man knelt beside her, his rough hand resting gently on her shoulder. His voice was steady as stone. "Yes, mine." Her tears flowed freely, but now they were mixed with a smile. For the first time in her life, she had been chosen, not thrown away. And in that clearing, under the rising sun, the cruel chains of her past finally broke. The forest slowly grew quiet again after the stepmother and her followers left. The torches faded in the distance, leaving only the soft light of the rising sun. The alien girl stood beside the human, her small body trembling from both fear and the strange power that had burst from her hands. She looked up at him, eyes wide, still unsure. "She'll come back, won't she?" she whispered. The man glanced toward the trees, his jaw tight. "Maybe," he said honestly. "But if she does, she'll find us ready. You're not alone anymore." Those words sank deep into her heart, warmer than the fire that once kept her alive in his cabin. For the first time, she felt she had a place, not because she begged, not because she hid, but because someone chose her. They walked together, leaving the clearing behind. The path through the forest was long, but their steps were steady. The girl clung to his hand, and each step forward felt like a step away from her past. By midday, they reached a valley where the trees opened to wide fields. The air smelled fresh and birds circled overhead. The girl stared in wonder. "It's beautiful," she whispered. The man nodded, his eyes scanning the land. "Here," he said, "we'll make a new home." She blinked up at him, confused. "A home? For us?" "Yes," he said firmly. "For us." That evening he built a small fire on the open ground. He showed her how to gather dry wood, how to tie sticks together for a shelter. She tried, her hands clumsy but eager. Each time she failed, he guided her patiently, never shouting, never mocking. "Better," he said when she managed a small knot. His praise made her chest swell with pride. Later he shared food from their pack, and together they ate while the sun set behind the hills. The sky glowed with colors she had never seen before. Orange, pink, and gold. She leaned against him, tired but content, whispering, "I nev. Or thought I'd see this. I thought I'd always be unwanted." The man placed his rough hand gently on her hair. "You are wanted," he said quietly. "You are mine now, my daughter." Her throat tightened, and tears spilled down her cheeks, but they were different tears, warm and full of joy. "Dad," she whispered, testing the word again, and this time she said it without fear. The next days were filled with work. They built a stronger shelter together, using wood and stone. The man taught her how to carry small bundles, how to fetch water, how to light a fire safely. She learned quickly, eager to help. Each night they sat by the fire, and she listened to his stories, of battles he had fought, of journeys across lands she had never seen. She told him of her mother, of how kind she had once been, of the loneliness after she died. For the first time her words were heard and her pain shared. In the village, rumors continued. Some still whispered she was cursed. Others feared the human's strength, but none dared to come after them again. The stepmother's voice grew weaker without support, and in time, she faded into her own bitterness. The girl, however, grew stronger. Her hidden power appeared in small sparks, which the man encouraged her to practice in secret. He never called it a curse, only a gift. One day, he told her, "This will protect you, as much as I do." Seasons began to change, and with them, so did the girl. She no longer walked with her head down. She laughed sometimes. She smiled often. She no longer whispered, "Please don't leave me," at night. Instead, she whispered, "Thank you," before falling asleep. One evening, as the fire glowed and stars filled the sky, she sat beside him and said softly, "You gave me a home when no one else would. You gave me a name that means something. Daughter." The man looked at her, his eyes steady. "And you gave me something, too," he said. "A reason to stay, a reason to fight." They sat in silence after that, the bond between them needing no more words. They sat in silence after that, the bond between them needing no more words. And so, the alien girl who had once been thrown out as worthless, found her worth in the most unexpected place, not in blood, not in law, but in the heart of a human who became her father. Her story no longer began with cruelty, but with a new truth. She was loved, she was chosen, and she was home.